Great night. Sure to send a chill down your spine. Welcome to Great Night. I hope all of you boys and girls are having a happy Thanksgiving. In today's episode, we're gonna have a feast, so I hope all of you are hungry.
Thanksgiving, a time of celebration with the ones we cherish the most. The time to take festive in foods and tradition. My family and I celebrated this tradition with turkey. Every year my dad would go out to the barn and pick the most plump turkey that would best suit for our dinner. My siblings and I would sit around the table and play a few board games while we waited for the turkey to cook in the oven. We would also listen to the football game in the background. Our mom would first pluck the turkey and remove all the giblets. She would then place it in the oven. While our mom was waiting for the turkey to bake, she began to make the pumpkin pies. She would remind us that we would have to wait until after dinner to have a slice of pie. Our mom was so busy with making the other side dishes for our dinner that she'd forgotten to check on the turkey that had been cooking in the oven for 10 hours. Later, when she finally did go and check on the turkey had been burnt.
Great, just my luck,
she said. My dad turned his attention to her. I'll go get another one. Our dad began to walk to the barn again when he had noticed something odd in the back of the barn. There had been smoke coming from behind the barn. In a panic, he raced over to the barn and saw a spaceship crashed into the ground. Our dad cautiously walked to the round silver spacecraft. Surprisingly, all of the turkeys had survived the crash site. My dad investigated the crash site. He looked around at the ground and around the spacecraft. The dirt had piled up around the spacecraft. He touched the spacecraft. It was bone-chilling cold instead of hot. He did not understand how this could be cold since there was smoke a few minutes ago surrounding the craft. The spacecraft was like something he had never seen before, with its round windowless shape, its all silver metallic look, and a flat rim surrounding it. He did not see any bodies on the ground or surrounding the craft. He began to wonder if maybe the bodies were still inside the craft. He looked for any signs of a door. He did not see any signs of a door, so he began to swipe his hand across the bottom edge of the craft. He felt a small button and pushed it with his third finger. A gush of steam burst out of the craft. My dad covered his face in fear of being possibly burned by the steam-like substance. When the steam dissipated, my dad looked into the spacecraft. He was puzzled when he did not find anything in the craft. He thought to himself, where did all the bodies that had been flying this spacecraft go? He looked on the ground, but there was no footprints, no signs of anything crawling or walking on the ground, just turkeys roaming the area. This made no sense to him, especially a site crash like this. Usually, any type of crash like this, there would be at least some type of body left over from a crash. If there had been any survivors, where could they have gone? They could not just disappear into thin air. Is that even possible? My dad's thoughts were interrupted by my mom calling out to him from the front window in the kitchen.
Tom, what's the holdup out there?
My dad looked up and replied back, I'm coming, just give me a minute. My dad looked around for another plump turkey, and when he found the one he thought was the best of them all, he caught it and walked into the barn. He grabbed an axe and went to chop off the turkey's head when something weird happened. The turkey turned its head and glanced up at my dad and begged, Please, don't kill me. My dad looked at the turkey with widened eyes. He was in disbelief that a turkey just talked to him. You can talk? My dad started at the turkey. The turkey replied, Yes, I've come from a planet called Venus to learn of the human's culture. My dad looked at the turkey with nervousness written all over his face. The turkey began to explain, I've been sent here to learn humans' good nature and their traditions of Thanksgiving so I can give and share humanity's good qualities. My dad nodded at the turkey. My mom yelled out the window for my dad. In shock, my dad picked up the turkey and walked back to the house. He was in so much shock that he did not stomp off the leftover snow from his boots when he came into the house.
Tom, did you get the turkey?
My mom asked. My dad did not answer her. He walked into the kitchen with a live turkey and sat it on the table.
What is going on here?
My mom asked him. My dad looked at the turkey and then at her. The turkey looked at my mom and said, "Hello." My mom's jaw dropped in a gape, and so did mine, and my siblings.
You can talk?
My mom screamed with her eyes wide open. My mom looked like she was going pale, almost as if she was going to faint. I grabbed a chair and sat her down. "How is this possible?" I asked. The turkey looked at me and replied, "I've come from a planet called Venus to learn of humanity's cultures and traditions, especially this so-called holiday, Thanksgiving, and to teach my clan the good nature that humanity has to offer." I had no words for what the turkey had just said to me. My dad pulled up a chair and sat the turkey in it. "Don't be rude, honey. Say, what was your name anyways?" My dad asked the turkey. "You can call me 0123, the turkey replied. "Okay, 0123. Sandy, go get 0123 something to drink," my dad told my mom. My mom slowly got up and poured the turkey a pomegranate mocktail. My parents watched the turkey peck at the liquid. "This is an interesting liquid," the turkey said. I could not take my eyes off the talking turkey. This whole scenario seemed like a weird dream. This couldn't be reality, could it? I pinched myself, ow, to see if I was dreaming, and I was not dreaming. My dad asked 0123, "What kind of food do you guys eat on your planet?" "You mean my clan? We eat all kinds of things, but most of the time, we eat a thing called vegetation," 0123 had answered back.
"Oh, so you're a herbivore?"
my mom asked. "I guess you could say that," 0123 had replied. My mom got up, feeling slightly more comfortable now that 0123 had basically told her he was a herbivore. She grabbed a plate and put some green beans, yams, and mashed potatoes and gravy on his plate and passed it to him. 0123 asked my parents, "What kind of food does humans eat on Thanksgiving?" My dad replied, "Well, we eat turkeys for Thanksgiving, and mashed potatoes and gravy and green beans with yams that have marshmallows on them, and a slice of pumpkin pie." 0123 looked at my dad as if he were processing what my dad had just told him. Then he asked, "So, is that why you were going to cut off my head in the barn?" "Yes, because that was before I knew you could talk," my dad replied. "I see," 0123 replied. I couldn't help but notice that 0123 kept looking over at the burnt turkey my mother had tried to bake earlier. I also noticed his mechanic answers to every question my parents had asked him. Something did not feel right about this. I'm not sure if it was the fact that he was a talking turkey or how he sounded. My mom looked at where 0123's eyes had been staring.
"Oh, that? I accidentally burnt it, and now it's unedible,"
my mom said. My mom beckoned us to come sit at the table and have dinner. My siblings and I all sat down. I felt very uncomfortable sitting at this table across from a talking turkey called 0123. What kind of name was that? It was just numbers. And the last time I checked, no one was called 0123. My dad began to ask about the spacecraft that had crashed behind our barn. "You came from that spacecraft, right?" "Yes, like I stated earlier, I came from a planet called Venus, but as I tried to land on the ground, I failed to realize Earth's gravities as different from Venus." I found his answers almost like someone had scripted him ahead of time, but I couldn't say anything about it. I remained silent as I continued to eat my dinner, while every once in a while looking up at him to see what kind of movements he would make. I did notice every once in a while he would look up at my parents and my siblings, almost like he was examining them. When he noticed I was looking at him, he would go back to eating. This had been the most uncomfortable dinner I had ever had to sit through. It creeped me out how cool my parents were being about this talking turkey named 0123 from a planet called Venus. How were they being so calm about this? Let me ask you this. If a talking turkey was talking to you, how would you react? Eventually, I asked the question that had been haunting my mind. Why does your clan want to know what we eat on Thanksgiving? And why do they want to know our traditions? 0123 looked over at me and replied, "We want to know so we can learn empathy and joy, so we can pass that down to our clan and our clans after that." Just like the answer before, it seemed off and not very truthful. I felt the need to excuse myself. My mom gave me permission to do so. When I was out of sight from my family, I decided to go check out this crash site. I quietly slipped on my snow boots and grabbed my red coat and put it on. I unlocked the door and held the handle in the opposite direction to conceal the click sound and slowly pulled it open. Being as careful as I could be, I stepped outside and gently shut the door. I walked over to the barn where my dad said the crashed spaceship was. I noticed around the spacecraft that all the snow had evaporated, and the spacecraft had dirt surrounding the bottom half of it. I also saw what appeared to be a white circle around the spacecraft. I bent down and touched my hand to the white circle and rubbed my index finger and thumb together. I felt a dust-like powder. Around the crash site, I could smell something that smelt like sulfur. I looked at all the other turkeys and noticed none of them were acting any different like the one in the house. I began to question why would Venus only send one of their clan members. To me, this made no sense, especially since they wanted so desperately to know about human culture and traditions. And Thanksgiving, wouldn't the talking turkeys be offended at the fact that we were eating their kind? Nothing on the ground gave me any clues about this so-called turkey named 0123 that had come from the planet Venus and crashed down on our planet behind our barn. There was also no evidence of there being any more of them, even though there was no evidence to support my intuition. I still did not believe that this talking turkey was here on good intentions, but with no evidence, I would not be able to prove anything. It wasn't until I began to walk back to the house when I noticed in the sky there were thousands upon thousands of spacecrafts, like the one that had been crashed down behind the barn. My mouth dropped open wide as I stared in terror from what I was seeing. I ran back to the house and I flung the door wide open, not bothering to shut it gently. "Mom! Dad!" I shouted. My parents and siblings all came running to me.
"What is it?"
my mom asked in concern. All I could do was point outside. My dad was the first of the family to step outside and see what I was seeing. I turned my attention to the turkey sitting at the table and I shouted at him, "What's going on?" 0123 raised his head and said, "Don't try to fight us. It won't do you any good." I looked at him with not only fright but puzzlement and asked, "What do you mean?" 0123 began to morph from a talking turkey into a tall, thin, gray alien, and he then replied, "We have been watching you humans for a long time now, waiting for our chance to invade your planet, and thanks to humans' ignorance and foolishness, we were able to invade your guys' planets when you were the most vulnerable." "You won't get away with this," I shouted at him. "So blissful you humans are. Don't you see? We have already won, and there's nothing you can do about it," he replied with coldness in his voice. My mom let out a scream when she saw the alien. The alien smiled wide, showing his profound teeth. "Don't you get it by now?" he asked. My dad looked at him confused and asked, "Get what by now? What are you going to do to us?" The alien smiled wider and asked, "Wasn't it you who said you picked out the plumpest one of them all?" My dad did not answer him. Tell me, which one of you is the plumpest of them all? The alien asked. What do you mean by that? My dad asked in a scared voice. I think you know what that means. We could hear the radio in the other room.
This is a special alert from 9 News. What looks like UFO spacecrafts landing on Earth's surface. It is unclear what these creatures want. We are getting reports that this is happening all over the world. What is it, Austin? Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like these creatures are invading homes. We urge you to stay in your doors. Lock all windows and doors.
The alien got up and turned off the radio. Well, I see no sense in waiting. I'm running out of time until my family gets here. Let me see, which one of you is the plumpest of them all? The alien said and began to size us up. You mean you're gonna eat us? I shouted in terror. It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without our special main course, the alien replied. My mom looked at him with widened eyes and asked, with a tremble in her voice, But I thought you were herbivores. The alien laughed. Oh, no, that is what you assumed, he replied. I glared at the alien, realizing I had been right this whole entire time and did not say a word. But who would have believed me? They all thought this talking turkey, who turned out to be not a turkey, was here on good intentions. Aw, come on, don't be like that. Here's what I'll do. We will save the children last, since they are not yet plumpest. We will start with the dad as our turkey, the alien said. My dad shouted, This is inhumane and cruel. Inhumane and cruel? What about the animals your kind kills and wastes? What about the animals you're making go extinct for your own personal pleasure? Isn't that inhumane and cruel? How is our way any different than yours? Why? Because you're a human? It means you're not fair game? The alien asked. My dad remained silent. You humans seem to think that you're at the top of the predator list and the smartest species on this so-called planet Earth. I laugh at this. It is a joke. If anything, you are the most selfish, destructive animal on this planet. Do you see any other animal or species causing as much damage as you humans do? Do other animals pollute their planet to the point of extinction? You can't answer me these questions because you know it's true. Now, if we have no further questions, I must insist that we get started, the alien said. You expect us to go willingly and be killed and eaten? I shouted at the alien. Why, of course not. But you see, while you all were so mindlessly eating, I tampered with your food, and soon you will fall to the ground, knocked out, and what will happen next? While you're all sleeping soundly, I will snap your necks and put you in the oven. I pushed my finger down my throat, trying to make myself gag, but I could not make myself puke whatever it was in my body that this alien had put in my food. Now I knew why he was studying us, while he was eating. It was not long until we all began to get drowsy. Fight it! I shouted at my family members, but it did me no good. One by one, they fell asleep. Eventually, I began to fall in and out of consciousness. Can you pass me the gravy? 0123 asked his mother. 0145.
Yes, my child,
she replied. You cooked this human just right, his dad 0185 said. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone!
I hope you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I know I sure did. I guess there's a message to be learned here. Be careful of who you have over for dinner. You never know. You might wind up on their menu. Thank you for listening to Great Night. Sure to send a chill down your spine.